Okay, so before you put this on, one important thing to remember is to put these little bags in the side. Now these little guys here, they're like airbags that deploy around the trailing edge of the wings. Okay, so these guys fit in here. Now, nice thing is about these, because it's not glued down in the middle, you've got this little bit of flex on the top, you can actually move these forward out of the way, all right? But these little guys will fit in here. Now, depending on how you've got the wing, I imagine 99% of you will do it with the wings swept forward, probably flaps down, things like that. Very rare tornadoes have the wings back, unless they're obviously in flight. So if you're doing it in flight, what you've actually got is a little slit down in here. So what you're going to want to do is just cut that to make it back. So basically the wings fold into the actual thing. So they'll come back and push in. So those flap areas will go down in there, but obviously we're not having those, so we need them out the way. So what we're going to do is grabbing a little bit of extra thin just at the moment, just to put a little bit on there just so I can get a grip. Okay, then that will come in here. The wing actually sits in it, okay, and pushes in. So it's something like that. And once you're in there, personally I'm going to do it from the inside, but obviously you can do it from the outside as well. You just want to make sure that that is in there, all glued in properly, because if it's not, when you start maneuvering this thing around, it's going to bend, it's going to ping off and everything else like that. So if we just do the other side, so we're going to do similar fashion. So we're just going to put a drop of glue and let the capillary action zip all the way around. Okay, a bit tricky to hold and show. Alright, so you have it in here. So then what we're going to do is sit it in and let that bit of wing go in there, and then just making sure you've got plenty of glue holding it in. So we're going to glue from the outside as well as the inside. Okay, all in there, same on this front one. Alright, because the thing is, once that top is on, if we come along and put this on, obviously you've got no way of getting them in. What you could do, you could try and push across from the other side, but getting the last one in would be somewhat of a nightmare. So once they're in, you can put this down. Now, one thing I have noticed, just make sure, again, you've got no flash off of these ejector pin marks at the front here, and also making sure that you've got no flash actually on the top of these little units as they go in, because when I test fitted it a minute ago, I did have a little bit. So when you came to do this, which is actually putting down this top section on, it sort of fouled everything. All right, now if I was you, I would wait a second just before you do this. But what actually happens is these speed brake areas go down inside and it all clips in. To be honest, it's one of those things, you'll know when you've got it in there correct, because it will feel right. Everything just sort of drops into place. All right, so what I'm going to do is just going to pop one of these on just to hold this back end. You could obviously use a rubber band. Now the front is getting this lot all to line up, okay? So it is a little question of sort of bit of push and pull to get it to drop in. What happens is normally, like here, this guy just needs to sort of pull around and push back and feel in. It's just a case of getting it all to sit correctly and you're fine with everything. Just be careful of these wing areas as they come out, because this bar, as you see here, sits on the top of it and pushes it in place and really locks it all down in there. Alright, so just making sure we've got everything all in. Let's take that off a minute. All just fit in. There we go. And then you get that sort of click and it's all dropped in. It's just a case of lining up these speed brakes at the back to get them in properly. Now they're in, we can reattach our little clamp here just to hold that back section in a little bit. What it's doing is pulling down a little bit and giving us pressure on the front, and then you'll find that this section here should all drop into place. Okay, so once you've got that guy in there, you can grab a peg maybe to sort of get around it and to hold that in. Actually, we want to probably go more the rear. And actually, although it's a mess, because it's on a flat area, it'd be very easy to sand it and fill it and everything else. As I said, it's not the nicest joint in the world. And you see we've got this one here exactly the same. So now we can come in, pushing in the sides, making sure they're all in, and generally just making sure you're happy before you come along like now. And we're going to glue it. So all we're going to do, plenty of glue, and I am finding with all this build, the secret to this is plenty of glue, and let the weld action do all the work, okay, because the plastic itself loves this glue and it's just melting in. So we're just going to hold that one in there. Okay, we've got a little bit of gap down here at the back, okay, but what I'm going to do is do the front end, because to be honest that's the pain area. Okay, now the only thing is we've got a gap here at the front, which I imagine is where, unless I'm missing something, is where we should come up. A little bit of a thing there. As I say, I'm going to put these sides on because we know they're correct. There's no way that will go any other way apart from this. Alright, so we're going to glue this, and we're going to look at these gaps in a moment and find out exactly the reason for why we've got them. So just put a drop of glue just down this back one more peg just to hold that down. Okay, I'm going to let that go in, but as you say, we have got this gap here at the front, both sides. I have a feeling it's because the nose should pull back, but in that case then, why have we got such a good join underneath? Because you might be able to see underneath here, we are completely perfect. Alright, but as I said, it's one of those questions we will answer in a minute, once we've got these two areas together, because I don't think it will say anywhere on the instructions about there being a big gap. But as I say, we'll worry about that in a moment. It has always been my concern that that was wrong and it should have been pushed back. It's just that when you did push it back, you had a gap underneath. But as I said, it's something we could quite easily take care of with plasticard. But my point to it is that it's actually square on the bottom. It's absolutely fine down here. There is no sort of curve at all. Okay, if anything, it is leaning back anyway, so we'll see. We're just going to play with that one, let that one dry. Okay, get the glue back into it as well. And then we're going to have a look at this top. Now it could be a case, really simple, of a quick little plasticard job just to shim that all in and make it a nicer fit. But what we want to make sure is obviously the cockpit is going to be okay. So we'll get the canopy out in a moment, pop that down and make sure it's all good. Okay, so as you can see, clamps are all off. We've got those wings nicely in position, really looking how it's going. And now we've got the confession time. Okay, now two things. First of all, this gap at the front, I think, is my cock up on this one. It needed to be pushed back and in. My only point to it is that I think it's probably better to show you. Hopefully you can see we have got down here the most perfect join for one of these cameras you could ever hope for. There's no filler whatsoever in there. It's literally together, a very light sanding, and it's done, and it's given us on both sides an absolute perfect joint. So from my point of view, this entire lower section, or halfway up this fuselage, is sitting correctly. If it was wrong and it was up by that, and it's 1mm at the top, the chances are we wouldn't have such a good join down there. But it wasn't even under pressure, it didn't need sanding to get up. So you'd have to think if it was normal and up, you'd have had some problem back here of fitting these in. But to be honest, these fitted in like an absolute dream. Number two is when you look up from the inside, I'm probably not going to be able to see them on camera, but you look in there, the point where the actual intakes join in and move into it are absolutely perfect. There isn't a gap. Again, if it had been pushed up, I think it would have interfered with it. So really, I can't understand what the problem is. And lastly, I know it's not the best one in the world, but when you put a ruler or a straight edge down the bottom, it is completely flat. So again, it's not as if it's out and there's a big gap or anything else. But we do have two gaps here. All right. My last bit of evidence in my defense of the reason it's like this is when you put the canopy in, okay, and you sit it into the join and you push it in, the clear part goes past the gap. Okay, I don't know whether the camera will pick this up on one of them, but actually it fits in there perfectly. Again, if it was shorter by 1mm, you'd think you'd have a gap. Again, so I'm thinking, I'm right, this is wrong, it's the kit. But the important bit, when you put the nose one on, okay, so we just remove this one, which I have to say is a beautiful fit because that's not going to need anything whatsoever, and it locks in there very, very nicely. When you insert the said main canopy, okay, and you push it to the rear, you do end up with a 1mm gap. So it's wrong, okay? Now, what are you going to do? Couple of options. Cut down on the inside, all right? So let me just get this front one off very carefully. as I say, it's such a beautiful fit, I don't want to wreck it. Down in there, okay, slice it perhaps with a razor saw, that way it will free up this front and you can try and pull it up, all right? Other options is to fill it. So my choice is I'm going to come along with a little bit of plasticard shim. I'm going to put down both sides. The canopy is going to be up. Nobody will ever know. But it is my mistake. I'm wrong. Second thing, in my haste of putting this together, I cut off these tabs on the wing on this side. Now, the observant ones among you are now going to go and flick back through, you know, a couple of hours of this, okay, and you're going to see that, yes, you're right, he did. He actually cut them all off, what a plank. So, what I've done is, because they were, well, I don't know, they've gone, I've made up these. So I've used a bit of the kit, which I haven't used. This is the one that adjusted the wing movements, which I wasn't interested in, so we didn't need it. Okay, so actually what I've done is I measure up again, so I've tapered off the ends slightly and made a copy of what we've got here. All right, so all we need to do now is the length of it. So the easiest way and the quickest, I'm not even going to measure it, we're just going to lean it up with the old one. Okay, got the right size, a couple of little swipes just to square up the end, and we've got to put it on this end. So again, we're just going to put it in, tiny little bit of glue just on the end, making sure the slope is to the inside, not to the outside. And then we're just going to come along and replace the guy in there, just like that. And no one will know, apart from you will know because I told you. But once it's painted, I don't think you know. But as I said, as soon as we come through and we put these flaps in, obviously you'd have a bit of a problem because you haven't got those bits that are hanging out, which should be, okay? So there we go. Apart from that, also I have to say, you might see we've got the intake fitted on here. I'll show you on this side as well. It's a perfect fit with no filler needed at all. Just a little bit of glue going around in there to take care of it. Again, I think if this was pushed up, it will affect all this entire front area and make everything a little bit more off. The only thing is that I'm guessing with that 1mm back, the intakes will be on the perfect height level with the front here. But I don't know, and as I said, it's such a small thing, I don't think anyone's going to know about it. So, whilst we're covering all of these areas, we have got this door. Now, this is the ram air door, which slows down the airflow when it goes to supersonic. We want to look slightly in our intakes, so I'm cutting them back to 7 degrees. And how do I know that? Is because it says it in the instructions. So in your instructions, you've got it just down here. This is the bit we're doing, okay? 16 degrees, 7 degrees, no degrees, because obviously it'd be on the flat. So I'm doing it just a little bit, just to hide, not hide, but certainly make things look a bit better in there. So again, a couple of swipes, just to tidy up that edge. Again, another beautiful fit in here. So what we're going to do is make sure this ejector pin mark is flush and not sticking up. Otherwise it'll affect with this part that goes in, all right? So what we're going to do is do a drop of glue just down there, bit of glue just over that ejector pin. This ram door fits very nicely into here. Okay, that sits in there something like that. Bit of glue just on the inside to hold that all in. So don't forget, he will balance slightly like that. Alright, so that sets that in. Then you come along with your intake. Make sure you've got no roughness on here or flash. There is a tiniest little amount of flash just down on this door, so give it a bit of a sand. And then what we're going to do, just to speed this up a little bit, I'm going to put a little bit of glue just around all this intake, so when this guy fits in, as you can see, what a great fit. And that is obviously the thing I'm finding with this entire kit, is that everything absolutely drops in here like a complete perfect, and you know, a tiny little bit of filler required, a little bit of glue. Okay, not got the front bit in. Let's get that one in there. Okay, a little bit around the front here. Now there is a little sink mark just down in here, so what I've actually got is just filling it up with a little bit of glue, just to take care. Get this plenty of glue in there. Okay, it's the weld action glue, so then what happens is it'll soften up all this plastic really nicely, and then you can come in like this and see, and you can push it all in, squish it all in. Okay, so you've got a little one over the top here again. By the time you get a little bit of glue in here, it just softens it all up really nicely. So when you come in, it'll push in like this, you see. So really happy. Okay, give it a good old nudge. And as you can see, it's all welding in there now. So it'll just be just the same as the other one, plenty of glue, and then we'll just clean it up just a little bit. Okay, that's our intakes on and everything else like that. And as I said, it's a little bit of a pain, but all we're going to do, we're going to take a little bit of plastic card, which I thought had a little bit around here. I'll grab a couple of strips of plastic card, I did have some. Here it is. Okay, so I reckon a couple of little shims of this just down in there. This is the 0.5, which actually isn't that far out. So we should be able to just pop this in, a couple of shims of it, saves us on filler and everything else. Remember, don't put it too close to this area if you have made the same sort of cock up as I have. Okay, just to keep it down to one side, and we should be absolutely fine with that. So what I'm going to do is just cut a little bit off here. Bit of glue in there. The glue is just to hold the shim in, stop it falling through. But remember, don't push it all the way through. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, tweezers, you're going to end up with a situation where you can't get it. Alright, so we've just got this guy here, because we want to be able to cut it to get rid of it. We could push it down a little bit. So there we go, that's them. So we're just going to re-glue that in place. The plastic card just speeds up the problem of the filler, because if you had a big lump of filler in there, going to take a while to dry, you see. So this is literally just to speed things up, and then once this is in, I can get it all clamped up. But I don't think it's worth trying to fix it, to actually go around and put it all right and everything else like that. So we're just going to come in. But one of the weird things with this problem, we'll see, we're making a good fix on it now. That's it. Is that when you look at the instructions for it, it shows the problem. So if you look down here, you can actually see there is a little step, and it shows there as being a gap, which is quite weird. You know, so it's almost like the instructions can see the fault with it as well, which is odd. But anyway, it is my mistake. Obviously, I do it so you don't have to. All right, so we fixed that problem. You're going to get a little bit of a clamp on the side here just to hold those intakes in, which if you're watching this sort of live, I am loving these clamps. They are so good. Go and get some, they're brilliant. Okay, so that's all in, a little bit more glue, just hold all that in place. All right, we're going to let that dry totally off, and then what you can do is just get in there with a blade or just sand it out gently, and then perhaps a tiny little bit of filler over the top. But say using plastic card as a shim, it just saves the amount of filler that's needed in there, and obviously it's so much easier to clean and sand and everything else like that. But you can see on the underside, those intakes really do fit in there very, very nicely. No problem with that at all. A light sand over and we're good to go. Right, we'll let those bits dry, and then we can carry on. We can get the fin done then, and we can look about actually installing the engines and the rear part on. Okay, so we're moving on really nicely with this one. In fact, we're moving on so quick that I'm still waiting for things to dry, like just normal glue. I'm just a little bit worried about we're moving a little bit too quick, but it's a great thing with this kit. It's going together absolutely lovely, no problems at all. Now, right, before we move on with the back, let's have a look at the tail. Now, the tail itself does come with two, these are radar warning receivers, these guys up at the top here. Now there's another one in the box which you've got to find. Here he is. Okay, so we've got two types here. Now, apart from some riveting detail in that, I can't see the difference between the two. Apart from these have got huge sink marks in them on both sides, which obviously definitely shouldn't be there. All right, these are these guys down here. Now the thing is, so what I'm thinking is, if this may be the wrong version that we're doing for the GR1, I'm not sure. When you look at photos of them, it looks like it's this one. It's the very short one. This one is just a tiny bit longer. I got a feeling that's maybe for the air defense variant or something else like that. But checking around are just general references, and to be honest, I haven't spent that much time looking. I've only spent sort of 10-15 minutes on Google having a look. I can't really see the difference, but this one, it says it's got big sink marks in it, so that's why I've elected to go with the kit one that says to use it. And this one is a tiniest, literally we're talking 1 millimeter shorter than the other one. But you can see it goes in there. It's really, really nice. We've got another little piece that goes up in the end there, but we'll put that on a moment. To be honest, it's still just literally glued it 10 minutes ago and it needs to be sanded in. Once it's in, it will go on here. Absolutely lovely. Usual thing though, check for flash. And it is one of those things. This tail is absolutely beautiful, fits together. There was a couple of little bits of flash around it. Quick pass over the sanding stick took care of that. And I know I keep going on about it, but trust me, many times on a dry fitting, it's like, oh, that doesn't fit. Found a tiniest bit of flash and then it's perfect. So it is that thing. Just take your time, check for flash, and you'll be absolutely fine. Now, okay, down in this area here, we're going to rush it a little bit, but we've got this guy here. We've done this one, which has obviously had a bit of a filler job going to be going on in here, but I'm thinking we can probably get these, the actual tops of these on. Now, it does say to put the bottom on first, but again, when you put them in and you have a look at it, they don't fit exactly brilliant, all right? There's a tiniest little gap. So what I'm thinking is, we're just going to remove half of this little circle, which is obviously goes in there, and I reckon then it should fit really nicely. So what I'm going to do is just make a nick. Now I'm not taking it all out because obviously we need it to tell us where it all goes and everything else. So I'm just taking a little shim of it out, okay, on that little top edge, just so it will nicely slide into where we want. And again, this is one of those things, it's a tiny little tolerance, but I'm hoping it will now give us a better fix in here. So if we can just make sure we've got the hole, and it does. Okay, so that gives us a lot better join down here, and it's hardly anything actually, so we're really happy with how that is. That's going to fit in absolutely lovely. So I'm going to take the gamble and we're going to glue it in. So we're going to do a good old dollop of glue on the top here. The wing is basically locked in this position now, which I'm not unhappy with because I didn't want it all moving around anyway. So that's that bit on there. I've got this one on, okay, sit him in. Now we don't want to put glue down on these veins down the back, but obviously we do need to glue the front. So I'm just using the old touch and flow technique rather than brushing it all over. And I'm not going to go near the edge because there would be a natural gap with those. Alright, so we're just going to put a generous bit in there, then we're going to give this a nudge and a hold, and to be honest, like everywhere on this kit, it's absolutely lovely. There is a tiniest little gap down here at the front. Alright, so what I'm going to do is obviously we'll pop in with something to take care of that. Alright, so we're going to look at the bottom. Again, we're just going to pop that in. Let's see how it all goes. Sorry, I think I've got the wrong one here. Yes, I have been a complete muppet. I've got it the wrong way round. Okay, not a problem. We're just going to heave this one off carefully. Okay, try again. As I say, I know during testing we didn't have too much of a problem. Okay, that's more like it, because it should come up higher. Alright, so that's in there now. Happy how that is. I'm going to glue this down in. As I say, do as I show, not as I say. Okay, so we're just going to have a bit of a nudge all in there. That one fits in there a lot better. Let's put the top one on the other side. I was wondering why we had the hole underneath. So again, nice dollop of glue in here. Tops down. Okay. Now if you wanted to, you could bring in your clamps and get it. There is a slight rise on both sides, so don't think that that's a misalignment, it should be down. There is a slight rise. Okay, so very happy how that guy's in. It's gone in lovely. And then you just come along with the bottom, and where you've got a mistake with glue, just put another drop on top just to melt in any rough edges you get. And then this guy should fit in the bottom. and then click in. There we go. I know it went better in testing than I was showing you. Okay, so that's a lovely fit in there. And then again, I'm just going to brush in. Might need a tiny bit of filler down in there just to take care of that seam. Same on the other side. That one fits in. I have to say, you know, this has been one of the finest builds the Revell has actually done, which I know they should do because obviously they're getting better, but and as technology improves, but quite frankly this kit has been absolutely stunning. It hasn't given me any problems apart from what I've caused myself, i.e. that little gap at the front and then trying to stick that on upside down. Alright, let's give those a little nudge just to hold them in place. Okay, and that's those on. Really, really nice. Okay, now the tailplanes. If you watch the review, I was saying about I'm not sure I have moving tailplanes. It does, but to be honest, they are probably the most horrible thing I've seen. Tornadoes, depending on how they're powered down and the hydraulic state, depends on where the tail is. It does seem to place downwards. It doesn't tilt backwards. When you see them, they tend to be downwards or level. Don't seem to be on the fallen back. But these little guys, literally, you have these ones here, and they come in and just fit in the back end. Okay, and they literally just sit there like that, and it's not the nicest thing in the world, and they're not the best fit in the world, if we're honest. It's so slack. Okay, then you take your rear part, which we've done this already, okay, and then obviously you've got the two slots that will go in the top, and then you have to very carefully get them all in there in one like that, and then you can put it in. Now the trouble with these are really loose and they just sort of wobble around a bit, alright, but what we're going to do, we're going to glue this in because we can lock it all into place then. And I think what we'll do is we'll leave it loose for the moment because I'm going to paint them with them off because we're doing wraparound camo. I don't want to be in the position where we've got to, you know, keep going around. Just hold that a sec. Going around a tailplane, it'd be easier to put it on afterwards and we can spray them as a separate and all those good things like that. So we're going to leave these somewhat as a loose sort of fit. Once we've put the tails on, when it's together, I think we're going to glue them solidly in a position, whichever that may be. Okay, so we'll be checking our references of the particular aircraft we're doing, things like that. Alright, so don't put your glue right up to these little guys. We just want the capillary action to pull somewhat there, but don't go all the way in. Because as I say, we want them to move. Every now and again, just give them a wiggle. Alright, so as you can see from the underside, it's absolutely phenomenally good. We've got no gaps. Considering the complexity of this kit and exactly how it goes together, which, let's face it, isn't the most straightforward in the world, the joins and everything else is pretty much seamless under here. I haven't used filler properly yet. Okay, I've used a little bit of thin and some thick glue just to take care of these little guys down here and some ejector pin marks and stuff like that, but when it comes to actually gluing properly and filling and sanding and all those good things, I haven't done that yet. We're pretty much spot on. Okay, so that's in, so just every now and again give them a wiggle just to make sure they are still loose, like this guy here is getting a bit firm. What I might do is actually just angle them down just in case they lock like it. But you might be able to see in there, the way this actually works is pretty lousy. It's not the best thing in the world. It's also picking up weight. Now we're getting it together, it's getting quite weighted. Alright, so that's that in. Then it's a matter of choice if you want to put this in. Don't worry too much about these little marks on this one because they actually do lock into this, which is quite nice. So when you put your little guy in, hopefully you get him around the right way. I can remember, no other way. There is little holes that this guy locks into. Again, I'll show you a good example, and I'll keep going on. Flash on the inside here just makes it a little bit tricky for it to go in, but as I say, if you go in, you can give it a cut and just nick off the flash, which will make it a lot nicer. But as I say, these little guys in there, don't worry about it. Do you want to put it on now or afterwards? Depends on the colour scheme obviously you're doing. Sometimes it's easier to put it on afterwards, but if you wanted to, you could just put this in. Make sure you get it the right way up. That's the thin side, and that will go in. What I'm saying about painting wise is because this fits in here like this collar system here is like a titanium, so it's a silver, versus the rest of it's quite dark. So if you wanted to, you could put it in afterwards, paint it, then put it in, or you can put it in now and just obviously mask around it. I don't think it's going to affect anything at all. So just give that a nudge because it's starting to slip a little bit more liquid well, just to lose the joins. Okay, just like that. Just hold that a second. You could put a rubber band around it just to pull that in, because we should be able to take it off of the front. To mind those. There we have. Take it right around the nose. Just to pull this rear section in, just to hold it all in nice and tight. Bottom's okay, just got a little bit of movement on this top. So we're just going to put a little bit more liquid well just to smooth out any imperfections. Those are down, these are moving. No, that one's starting to glue up. Just give it a little bit of a wiggle. And that's in there. So there we go, that one's done. What I'm going to do now is have a small break, because I've got to do a little bit of filling and things like that. We want to have a look. You might be able to see these two where we've corrected it. I've cut them down, a little bit of glue just on the top just to melt it in a bit. That needs the cut of ours really to go off and get really, really tight. Okay, so once that's done, what we can actually do then is go around, check everywhere for seams, a bit of rescribing, things like that, and we can start to move on. And also we can put the tail system on and really start to get us looking like a tornado, which is absolutely fantastic. And again, that's a lovely little fit. I don't think that's going to be any problem at all putting that in.